Hi, everyone. It's We Rise Now. I'm Robert with Karen and Diane. And the question that we have right now before us is to think about the relationship of prayer and meditation. A lot of the emails that I see going around that have to do with Lent, the, the kind of meditations that people are sharing, are things that people read instead of pray, instead of meditate. And so there are these readings that they're called meditations, and then there's this other practice that we're doing that is a more quiet, reflective, and it's about our being. Diane, could you shed some light on those differences for us?
Yeah, Robert, I have to say this difference was something that did not come innately to me. I remember working with my meditation teacher one day, and she said to me, "Quit reading. You're not going to find God in those books." And I happened to be sitting on my bed at the time, and I looked over to the side, and there was this pyramid, right, of spiritual and religious books by my bed.
Mhm.
And so, why is meditation different than prayer? It's an opportunity for us to get out of the mind and into the temple of the body. Instead of trying to think about God or find God with our thoughts. And of course, God is beyond the human mind. Instead of that, we go into the temple of the body and we open ourselves to experience the presence of God. And I really do believe that the lack of these types of practices with a focus on being as opposed to thinking or doing has so limited us inside of our traditional Christian faith, although meditation was absolutely a foundation of our faith. For so many of us in the mainstream, it got lost along the way. And this is an opportunity to taste the experience of that presence of God right here, right now in our human bodies, and not to wait until we die to have that experience. So that's for me why it's
Mhm.
so precious.
Diane, when you first came into my office and I was, this pastor who was doing all that I knew how to do, and yet I knew there was something in my soul that was off. It was not fully experiencing this higher level of spirituality that I longed for. And when you talk about this bodily experience, it is just that. I mean, you can, all the written prayers in the world, or all the ways that we want to do the different styles of prayer, this is something that becomes so born within us that we just start becoming more and more of it with the repetition. And that's why the repetition, and you taught that you must do this every day, but you never scolded me when I fall off the wagon. But it is such a hunger for people to have this kind of spiritual connection.
Yeah, I yearned for it.
Absolutely. The kind of way I'm thinking about this as well, in addition to yours, is that when I pray with my mind, when I have words that I pray out to God, it really is something that goes out from me. But meditation is very different. Meditation is a tasting, just like you said, Diane. It's a breathing in. It's a reception of that which is already there. It's already around us and within us. And so we need to practice the receptivity to being quiet, just being, and filling up with that being that is ever present all around us, flowing through us all the time, so that then we can align ourselves with that spirit that is that's within and all around. So I think it's that that difference is really important. So we still pray. We pray with our words, pray with our minds, but it's so important for us to do the other that is almost more foundational, that is being in the presence of God and receiving that with open arms.
I think it somehow, Robert, it does change even our prayer life too.
Mhm.
The structure of our prayer lives, what we understand is there's been, I think, some things that have been ingrained in us about the need for confession versus acknowledgement. I think that somehow meditation moves us to a spiritually different kind of place, even when we regularly pray then.
Yes.
I agree, Karen. You know, in my Catholic faith that I grew up in, there was a point in the Mass where you beat your chest and you say, "I'm not worthy to receive, but only say the word and I shall be healed." And I remember the first time I went back to Mass after I started to meditate, and I thought, "Oh, it's not true." You know, it's not true. It's like the presence of God just waits for us to open. And when we open, it just comes in to our bodies, into our hearts. And when our hearts are open, then that goes out into the world. And all we have to do is take the time to be and to open, and it's right there.
You know, with that, Diane, I think then people who have been so schooled in that confessional piece being the heavy piece of their life, there becomes a newness of life where they find themselves worthy.
Yes.
And it isn't about any longer having to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry." I mean, we've all been with people who have just, with every little thing that happens, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I want to say, you don't have to be sorry. It's all good, you know. Take a deep breath, and I think that's what that discipline of meditation helps us come to. And Robert, this is probably way too long than we would have given people, but I do believe that all of this is such an important element of helping people understand why meditation is such a valuable practice.
Yes. Yes. I think in many respects, when we pray with words and with our minds, we are trying to communicate to God. Meditation is about how prayer works on us. It's about us opening up and being changed by it, deepened, grounded, centered.
And Robert, one of the things I was thinking is Karen was saying how it changes your prayer life. I know how it's changed mine, and that I think I spent so much of my time asking God for something and feeling just such a sense of lack in my life. And after I started to meditate, that really went away. It doesn't mean that I don't intend things in this world, but there's a peace about what comes that I didn't find until I had a meditative practice as well as a prayer practice.
An inner fullness.
Yes.
Yes, right, right.
You know, I often wonder too how, in just looking at the life of Jesus, I do believe there was a depth of meditation that is not completely spelled out in the scriptures. They say he goes away to pray, or he has 40 days of fasting, or, you know, he goes to the garden. And there to me is a witness of something deeper going on than rote prayers by any means, although he did know the Psalms and Isaiah and all of those things. I do, that depth of taking a deep breath when he went to the seashore. I just think that's what he's his witness gives that to us.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. So that the depth, the meditation is such a depth orientation, and prayer with our minds and with our words is a different kind of activity that we engage in.
Mm.
But they're both very connected. They both feed each other. But I do believe that meditation gets us to a depth that we would not otherwise experience.
Mhm. You say a depth, Robert, and I say a height. I wonder.
Same. It's all paradox.
Same.
That's right. It's
Same,
expansion. That's right.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The infinite interiority and
Yes.
the infinite exteriority. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.